Imagine waking up, getting dressed, heading out to work, checking your phone, replying to texts, maybe going to the gym or calling a friend. Just regular daily stuff, right? Now imagine that with every one of those seemingly normal actions, you're quietly running away. But here's the twist. You're not running from other people or the world. You're running from yourself. Have you ever felt kind of empty, even when everything in your life looks fine? Like a low-level anxiety that sticks around in the quiet moments? Or a vague sense that something important is missing, like it's hiding just beneath your daily routine? That's what this is about. This is about the subtle, sneaky ways we escape ourselves, the habits we've developed to avoid really facing who we are, and more importantly, how to stop running. Stick around until the end, because what I'll share with you later might just shift the way you live and see yourself. It's that powerful. If you've ever wondered why happiness feels slippery or why you feel restless even after reaching your goals, this might be exactly what you've been missing. Before we dive in, if you're someone who enjoys deep conversations about human nature, philosophy, or how to live more consciously, I invite you to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's build a space where honest minds can connect. Okay, let's get real. You might not realize it, but so much of modern life is designed, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, to keep you distracted from yourself. Over 100 years ago, the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said that despair isn't always this dramatic, painful thing. Sometimes it's just this quiet, nagging feeling that your life is being lived on autopilot, that you're not really connected to who you are. He believed that despair shows up when we drift away from our inner truth, not because something bad happened, but because we keep turning away from our real thoughts, feelings, and desires. We fill our days with to-dos, goals, roles, and responsibilities. Always going, always doing, but rarely pausing to ask ourselves, how am I really? When was the last time you just sat in silence? No phone, no music, no distractions, just you with your thoughts. Most of us avoid that space because when we slow down, all the stuff we've pushed down starts to come up. The emotions we haven't processed, the grief we've buried, the parts of ourselves we've tried to ignore. So we stay busy, we socialize constantly, we work harder. Sometimes we even use spirituality as a way to keep performing instead of actually connecting inward. We tell ourselves, I just need to get through this week. Or, once I hit this goal, then I'll be at peace. But peace doesn't come at the end of a checklist. Peace starts when you stop running and start listening. Let's pause and really think about something. How often do you feel truly seen? Not just noticed or talked to or tagged in a post, but actually seen for who you are, your thoughts, your values, your inner world. If your honest answer is not very often, then maybe your craving for solitude isn't a problem to fix. Maybe it's something to respect. The philosopher Schopenhauer had a powerful take on this. He believed that needing time alone isn't a weakness. It's a sign of depth, a sign that your soul is outgrowing the surface level stuff. To him, solitude was where real life begins, but not in a self-important way. He wasn't saying that people who like solitude are better than others. He meant that there are people, quiet, curious, self-aware people, who simply don't need constant noise or attention to feel complete. In fact, the more full your inner world becomes, with ideas, questions, creativity, the less you need from the outside world. Constant conversation starts to feel exhausting. Endless scrolling starts to feel empty. Social gatherings can even feel like too much, not because you're antisocial, but because you're already full. And yet, we live in a culture that misreads this completely. Solitude is often mistaken for sadness. Quiet is mistaken for withdrawal. Being alone is seen as a sign that something's wrong. So when you start stepping back, when you stop going to every event or replying instantly or always saying yes, people might worry. They might say things like, "Are you okay?" Or, "Why don't you want to hang out more?" But here's the truth. Sometimes, solitude is where you're most okay. Not because you hate people, not because you're shutting down, but because you're tuning in to your own thoughts, your own rhythm, your own truth. Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat this part, though. He knew that the moment you really wake up When you begin to see through all the noise, the pretending, the ego-driven performance, it hurts. You start to notice how much of society is built on illusion, how often people say things they don't mean just to be liked, how many relationships are held together by distraction, not truth. And yes, that realization stings, because you also realize you used to do the same, but something changed. You stopped craving small talk. You stopped needing to fit in. You started seeing clearly. And when you taste something real like that, you can't untaste it. That's the gift of solitude. It doesn't just give you peace, it gives you power. Not power over others, but power within yourself. The kind of power that says, I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to perform. I don't have to be everywhere for everyone all the time. I just have to be. Fully, truthfully, quietly. That's not a weakness. That's wisdom. Schopenhauer believed most people live in a constant state of distraction. We chase pleasure. We chase attention. We chase being busy, not because we're fully alive, but because we're running from something, running from silence, from stillness, from ourselves. He once wrote, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." It sounds harsh, but it's not an insult. It's a warning, because the second you stop distracting yourself, the moment you allow silence to actually settle in, you begin to feel how strange and uncertain life really is. And honestly, that can be terrifying. That's why crowds feel comforting, why noise feels safer than quiet. When you're always surrounded by people or caught up in noise, you don't have to face what's living inside you. But Schopenhauer believed that the awakened person, the one who dares to look inward, can't just go back to sleep. Once you've seen behind the curtain, once you realize how much of life is built on shallow habits and empty validation, it's hard to unsee it. Suddenly, the jokes don't land the same way. Small talk feels forced. The pressure to impress? Completely exhausting. You begin to notice the drama people cling to just to feel something, the masks they wear to hide insecurity, the pretending they do to fit in. And the most difficult part? You realize you used to do that too, but something inside you changed. You started asking deeper questions. You started looking for meaning instead of distraction. You stopped needing noise just to feel okay. And that shift is disorienting. The world that once felt familiar suddenly feels fake, hollow, too loud. Schopenhauer didn't pretend life was easy. In fact, he believed that suffering is at the root of all human experience, not because life is cruel, but because desire never truly stops. You want something, you get it, but then you want more, or worse, you want something you can't have. And so, quietly and constantly, we suffer. Most people avoid this by staying busy, by staying plugged in, by staying numb. But Schopenhauer believed there was another way. He said, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. Why? Because only in solitude do the masks come off. Only in solitude can you see your pain clearly, without flinching. Only in solitude can you face the truth without filters or distractions. And yes, that truth might hurt, but it's also the doorway to something real. When you finally step away from the crowd, really step away, something strange happens. At first, you might feel lost, lonely, maybe even broken, but over time, things begin to shift. Your thoughts calm down, your energy returns, you begin to feel you again. You realize you don't have to be everything for everyone. You don't have to keep up. You don't have to keep playing a role you've outgrown. You just have to be. And in that stillness, you heal, you understand, you rebuild, not a fake version of yourself, but the real one that's been buried underneath all the noise. That's why solitude isn't a prison. It's a path to truth, to peace, to power. Schopenhauer saw something most people miss. Our deepest suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from how tightly we cling to desire. We want love, we want attention, we want to feel important. But the more we want, the more we suffer, especially when we don't get it, or when we finally do and still feel empty. Schopenhauer believed real freedom begins when we stop chasing, when we stop needing the world to fulfill every craving, when we can finally say, enough, I don't need more to feel whole. Now, this isn't about giving up on life. It's about ending the inner war, the war to always be liked, the war to constantly feel exciting, The war to earn approval, applause, admiration, escape. When you let go of all that noise, something deeper begins to wake up. You start living from stillness, from peace, from a place inside you that no one else can touch, because you've already faced your own darkness and survived it. Schopenhauer believed most people are trapped in illusions, illusions of happiness, of control, of success. But those who wake up from those illusions often end up standing alone. That loneliness can feel like exile, but it's actually a sign of freedom, because when you stop following the crowd, you stop running in circles, you stop living on autopilot, and you finally start seeing things clearly. And with that clarity comes a different kind of power, not the loud, showy kind, not the kind that needs to dominate or impress, but the quiet, grounded, unshakable kind. The kind that lets you walk through chaos with a calm heart. The kind that lets you face loss without losing yourself. The kind that lets you live without needing constant validation. But if you choose this path, truth, solitude, awakening, don't expect applause. Most people won't understand. They might say you're too quiet, or too intense, or too different. But here's what they don't see. While they're lost in distraction, you're building clarity. While they're chasing validation, you're finding peace. While they're trying to escape themselves, you're finally coming home to yours. You're not broken. You're just done pretending. You're done suffering just to fit in. You've chosen something real, and that choice is rare, but it's beautifully, deeply yours. Look, Schopenhauer's philosophy isn't for everyone. It's not the kind of thinking that goes viral or makes people feel warm and fuzzy. It won't promise 10 steps to happiness or a shortcut to a perfect life, but it offers something deeper: the courage to see clearly, the strength to sit with pain, and the freedom to live from your truth, even if no one else gets it. So if you've ever felt like the outsider, if you've pulled away from the noise, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, if you've sat in silence and found more there than any crowd could ever give you, then maybe, just maybe, you're not lost. You're exactly where you need to be.